If you or anyone you know is interested this Thursday in our church here, I'll offer an overview of the faith of Catholics. It is for anyone interested in becoming Catholic, for those who have no desire to become Catholic but just kind of curious, and for anyone in between. I'll look at three basic things. One's just the question of God. Two, the purpose of religion in general. And three, a little bit about the Catholic Church in particular. The presentation will go not 1 second longer than 1 hour and 6 minutes. Count on it. And we'll eventually, I think, post it to our webpage. Okay, so, but you're certainly welcome. Secondly, boy, just naming that I had sciatica, we're getting better. It's a slog, but man, I had several days in a row where that eased up and the walking was so much easier. It was such a relief. Anyway, and finally, in today's gospel, some people kind of give up on Jesus. Really, his teachings were too tough. His way of life was a lot. Well, the gospel question is, why don't you give up? I mean, why do you still at least try to believe? Try to be loving and kind. Thanks for joining. Here's the homily. One Sunday morning, a mom goes into her son's room to wake him up and tell him it's time to go to church. He says, "I don't want to go to church." And she said, "Why not?" He said, "I'll give you 2 good reasons. One, they don't like me and I don't like them." Mom says, "Well, I'll give you 2 good reasons why you should go to church. 1, you're 45 years old, and 2, you're the pastor." Wait, the story is not about me, at least for the most part. But when I was younger, it was my mom and dad who would wake me up and bring me to church. I'm glad they formed me that way. It's good to grow up in a home like that. However, as I grew up, I ultimately had to learn to choose that for myself. For I am free. I am free to choose to be a follower of Jesus and his way, his values, or not. I am free to live the practice of my faith within this tradition called Catholic, or not. Now, in today's gospel, we see that some of those who have been listening to Jesus, they turned away from him. You can sense the sadness in Jesus as he sees them walk away. But Jesus never forced anyone. And now, well, certainly there are plenty of people who are finding the term Christian, be a follower of Jesus, to be problematic, mostly because of some of the really awful behaviors that are deemed Christian. I mean, for example, the term Christian nationalism, from what I see, is identified with the vilification and hatred of others who don't do it the way we do. And in a similar way, some who used to call themselves Catholic no longer want to. Now, as an aside, the Catholic question. The main thing to remember about religion is that it is a means to the end. It's not the end in itself. I mean, there's so much I could say about this flawed, important Catholic Church family, which sometimes breaks my heart and at other times inspires me beyond measure. And I'll speak a little bit about that at that overview of the faith of Catholics on Thursday, but it is a really valid question. It is. But the main thing for now is the question of Jesus, his values, what he stood for, the way of life he proclaimed and invited us to follow, the integrity and the goodness for which he stood, what he invites of us, asks us, and offers us. As you can imagine, people often tell me honestly about their struggles with faith. Years ago, I remember when a priest I knew whose mom died too young seriously asked me, what if there really is no life after death? And he goes, what if this is it? And I could see in his eyes that that was truly frightening to him, that question went to his core. Now for some, it's not so hard to believe that there is a God or that there is a life beyond what we can see. I think the more common question for many, though I think a lot of folks don't take enough time to reflect, to be able to actually articulate this, is this question. Is following the way of Jesus really worth it? Is Jesus worth it? Now, really, Father, is it really worth it to try to be a kind and generous person like Jesus asks? So many people are mean, they seem to get away with it. So many people are selfish and unscrupulous, and at the same time rich and powerful, maybe even famous. Does the time and effort it takes to be a prayerful and loving person really have value? This Jesus stuff is hard, Father. You can't argue that. Is it really worth it to try to be a good person? Over my years, all of these questions have at one point or another visited me also. Maybe you've wondered as well. Perhaps this is one advantage for me of being as old as I am. Certainly it's a grace from the good people who have loved me so well and inspired me over the years. But now when I find those questions surface in me, because sometimes they still do a little bit, there's another response that seems to arise in me, surface in me somewhere shortly after. It's the same question that Peter had today. I hear myself ask inwardly, Lord, to whom would I go? To whom else would I go? Over the years, I've had my times of discouragement with the church. These days, I tend to get disheartened by the ugliness and the political divisions, kind of the strident and angry voices and rhetoric. I am disheartened by my, I think, well-intentioned brother priests who add a lot of shame and guilt on people, seeming to emphasize a strict adherence to rules in a way that puts some people in in-groups, the in-group, the small, the few, the righteous, the right, whatever, and many people in the out-groups, all of which is so not how Christ did it. And for all of us, I think being a peacemaker these days is tough, right? Living with integrity and finding ways to be hopeful and grateful and caring is difficult. But what about the other options? Do they work? I've seen plenty of people retreat into bitterness or cynicism. There's no life there. Apathy, not caring. There's no meaning there. Some are tempted to bury themselves into making more money or gathering more things. I've never seen that take away anyone's emptiness. Some get deeper into addictions, social media, porn, drinking, whatever. There's no real life there, is there? Some get more and more black and white in their thinking, more rigid in their religion, more fanatical in their causes. All without realizing it usually, I think, as a way they don't have to feel the pain of ambiguity or to do the hard work of a more humble and mature way of living. That stuff, it does not bring joy. And certainly some just get more and more angry. There is no life there. That never yields a happy life. And I mean, though those are easy temptations, I have never seen them work. Now, I'm not telling you anything you don't know when I tell you that life is often hard. And being loving and kind in the midst of all that swirls around us and sometimes in us is a hard and crucial discipline. But I want to state as clearly as I can what I have come to believe through these 4 ways. In the midst of all the doubts and big questions and all the letting goes, this is what I choose to trust. And I've experienced these things in my own life as well. With all my heart, I believe, 1, love wins. It does. Love wins. 2, human goodness is the best thing ever. An actual taste of the goodness of God. I just love it. 3, there is for me and for everyone, I believe, available a community of believers whose goodness I can count on. And if you're hearing me now, please know that your goodness makes more of a difference to me personally, than you know. And I hope and pray you find good and loving people to sustain you along the way as well. And 4, Jesus is worth my life. His path is the way to joy and meaning and fulfillment. When all swirls around me and when life is sad or weird or scary for me, I pray that I cling to what Jesus lived and preached and showed me is possible, because his way is the way to a life of deepest meaning and most profound joy. And when I am truly aware and most alive, as I said, that's when I know he is worth my life. Aaron put it this way in the first reading: as for me and my household, we will serve the Lord. I say, Lord, to whom else would I go?